Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday. We are excited to have you with us today for our marketing management webinar with Terry Sullivan. My name is Paul Cotter. I'm a product marketing manager here at Stukent, and I'll be hosting this event today. Just before we get started, go ahead. We're going to use the chat feature today. So go ahead and give a hello in the chat. Tell us where you're from. Tell us what school you're teaching at. We want to know. Give us a chance to get to know each other right at the first. We will be utilizing the chat feature, and we will have different polls that pop up, and we'll have some handouts during the event. And we just encourage you to participate with us that way. Looks like we have people here from Fort Worth. We have Kelly teaching at Ball State University. Jane from the UK. That's awesome. Welcome. Probably your evening over there. Brandon from TCU Neely School of Business in Fort Worth, Texas. Welcome. It's good to have you guys with us. I'm going to pop up a little poll to get started. Just a poll question here. Do you currently teach or plan to teach a marketing management course? So go ahead and fill that out. We'll see who our audience is today. Looks like we have Iris from Puerto Rico, Jeffrey from La Quinta for National University, Brenda from Ohio, Sinclair Community College. Welcome, everyone. We're grateful that you've joined us today. Just to let you know how this event will work today, we will use the chat function, like I said, and when Terry comes on and gives his presentation, he'll do that, and we encourage you to save up your questions. He'll do a Q&A at the end. You can ask those questions anytime in the chat or at the end when he's ready to do that. But just a couple of housekeeping items. If you are not familiar with Stukent, we have a Stukent professor community on Facebook, and we would invite you to join that group. We have over 800 members in that group right now. And it's just a great place where instructors and professors are able to talk and share ideas, and especially ideas around Stukent and our courseware and our simulations. So if you are a Stukent user, that's a great place, resource for you. If you're not, it's a great place to learn more about Stukent and what we offer also. Another item that we have is we have a lot of events, a lot of webinars and courseware launches and simulation launches here at Stukent. And one of the upcoming ones that we have, I'm sharing a link right now, is we have a new courseware launching at the end of this month, February 25th, and it is Intro to Business. Stukent has been very involved in marketing courses, and this is we're excited for this one because we're advancing into the business world, and with our first Intro to Business course. And this course will have extensive courseware, and it will also have a simulation that pairs with it. And so if you teach Intro to Business, or if you know someone who teaches, please share this information. You can register to attend that event, and we'll be sending emails out about that also. But we'd love for you to join us at that event. I think that what I want to do right now is I want to talk a little bit about our presenter today. His name is Terry Sullivan, and he is an author that we have worked with here at Stukent. Terry is the author of our Marketing Management Today courseware. He was also involved in the creation of the marketing management simulation. And this summer, I had the chance to meet Terry in person, and he is just a great guy. It was fun to hang out with him. Stukent is in Idaho, so we actually went up into the mountains and saw some really cool waterfalls and in the forest, and that was a lot of fun. But I learned a lot about Terry, and Terry is not your typical marketing professor. He teaches at Webster University in St. Louis, and I want to show you just this really quick 1-minute video that his school newspaper did on him so that you can learn a little bit about Terry and who he is. So I'm going to bring that up and show that.
Terry Sullivan has some serious skills.
I can't do a handstand stationary, but for some reason when the board's moving, I can do it.
His students are well aware of his talent.
You just don't picture, Terry, I love you, but you don't picture a middle-aged man being able to do that.
It's not as easy as it used to be, but that didn't stop him.
It became kind of a running joke. I'll do this handstand until I can't do it anymore.
It looks like he's good for now. Sullivan's personality is the same riding his skateboard as it is in the classroom.
What do you see is what you get.
True.
For sure.
Boy, those bumps are killer.
Sullivan said he'll eventually stop doing the trick, but not anytime soon.
I'll just keep doing it until I can't do it.
For the Webster Journal, this is Matt Woods.
Awesome. Who can do that? Like, there's not very marketing professors out there who can ride a skateboard on their hands. So Terry's awesome. He's definitely a fun professor. I think he'd be fun to have as a teacher. Just looking over at our poll, it looks like the majority of you do teach a marketing management course, 82%. 18% do not. I'm curious, if you don't teach marketing management, what are you teaching right now? But anyways, that just helps us learn a little more about you. But without further ado, I'm going to invite Terry Sullivan to come on stage, and we'll see what tricks Terry has in store for us today. Probably not a handstand, but he's got a great presentation. And Terry, welcome. Thank you for doing this. We're excited.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much. I'm thrilled to be here, so thank you.
Very good. Now I'm going to go off stage, and I'm going to turn the time over to Terry. And then when he finishes up, I'll come back on and we can do the Q&A, okay?
Okay. Thank you,
right.
Paul.
Thank you, Terry.
I appreciate it. So, Paul, do you have, oh, there we go. Okay. So, thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm Terry Sullivan, and Paul, thank you for that interesting introduction. But I really appreciate all of you joining me for Customer versus Company, How to Approach the Two Hats of Teaching Marketing Management, sponsored by Stukent. As you can see from the photo on this slide, I think I'm a pretty big deal. No, in truth, this is my icebreaker slide for new students, and they usually get a chuckle out of it, so I hope that you do too. But I do come to you today with more than 34 years of business experience. Currently, I'm a VP of marketing at Allegro Senior Living, a leader in the luxury senior living space. But in my past lives, I've been an entrepreneur, marketing consultant, business coach, staff marketer, among many other positions. Additionally, I've been teaching in higher ed for 13 years. I was a full-time assistant professor for 5 years at Webster University in St. Louis, Missouri. And I'm now an adjunct professor there in the School of Business as well as the School of Communications. So let me just advance my slide here. And as Paul mentioned, I am a Stukent author as well. The courseware that I created is Marketing Management Today, which is bundled with simulation software, Mimic Marketing Management. But just so you know, this is not a sales pitch. This is an informational webinar. And the title of this webinar was actually taken from the approach of the courseware, which I'll talk about later for just a few minutes. Also, if you stay until the end, which is about 30 minutes, Stukent has a couple of free gifts for you. So let me just advance the slide. So I have a really profound respect for educators and hope that my many years as a business person who has and continues to work with emerging marketers, as well as being a professor, will offer you some thoughts and insights. I'll provide my contact info at the end of the webinar and would love to hear from all of you. But the reason we entitled this webinar Customer versus Company, How to Approach the Two Hats of Teaching Marketing Management, is because there are two perspectives that are hugely important. But within each of those views are subtleties and nuances that I have found particularly useful over time that have been useful also to my students. So I think we have another poll here. So before we move on, we'd like to take a quick poll and just talk about, kind of get a feel for who's out there. So if you use the chat function and tell us what you teach and what year the majority of your students are, we would really appreciate this. Okay, the results are coming in. So we have a couple of junior answers, freshman, sophomore, 2 graduates. Okay, that's great. Okay, more are coming in. A lot of juniors. Okay, that's good to know. And this isn't, we'll talk about who the courseware is designed for later, but I always like to get a feel for, what the audience is looking like in terms of, what level they teach. So thank you for your responses. I appreciate it, but certainly the junior level is winning out at the moment. So I'm pretty convinced that over all the years that I've been in business and all the people that I've hired, that skills are obviously really essential. Some are invaluable, but we can't overlook the intangibles. And while some of these can't really be taught, like work ethic, passion, and motivation, many of them we can at least attempt to instill in our students. And a lot of these things I'm going to mention throughout this presentation. I like to show job descriptions as a keen reminder of what our students face when they graduate. I don't know if all of you look at these often, but as a student advisor for 5 years, I would often talk to my students and attempt to help them with their mounting anxiety about entering the job market. There's considerable specialization in marketing, but many companies are looking for people who can really hold a lot. And in many job descriptions that I've seen, the expectations for inexperienced people can border on the absurd. In this particular example I found on LinkedIn, the position is for a marketing manager that is considered entry level. The description states that the marketing manager is a generalist, but goes on to list many responsibilities, including branding, social media management, email marketing, copywriting, as well as being a great communicator, collaborator, and coordinator of marketing programs and initiatives. Oh, and organization, time management, creative problem solving, and knowledge of specific software are also required. This description isn't unique, and as educators, we need to be cognizant of what they will encounter when they get out in the real world. So what I hope you will learn in this webinar today is really kind of 5 things. Why students instinctively think like customers, yet often look past thinking like a customer. Number 2, what companies want emerging marketing managers to know. 3, why students need to wear both hats as a marketer. 4, how project management has become such a desirable skill set for marketers. And 5, why instructors need to understand the full impact of digital on marketing management students. So it's going to take a while before our students get to the place where they're setting strategy or doing heavy management, at least for a lot of them. But there are so many ways that we can help set themselves up for future success. Probably one of the best examples I can think of is KPIs, analytics, and measurement. There is such a profound emphasis on measurement these days that it's great for new marketing managers to understand what these are, sort of walking in before they will likely, because they will likely be exposed to them in their jobs from the get-go. And I'd like to just tell you a quick story. A few years ago, I was working with a consulting client in the e-learning space, and this was a fast-growing company, several divisions, very data-driven, in a very aggressive growth mode. And I was helping them with strategy, particularly making better use of their data through personalization. And the engagement was largely focused on HubSpot, and I worked with some of their internal marketing folks who would handle the execution. And I met a young man who was a marketing coordinator who had a business admin degree, and this was his first real marketing job. But what struck me about him was how much he knew for someone who had only been out of school a relatively short time. He knew more about HubSpot, digital marketing, and KPIs than a lot of seasoned marketers that I knew. But what he really understood was the internal client, and in a big way. His boss was really KPI driven, and they were tracking things that really matter to owners and stakeholders. So he was versed in customer lifetime value, customer acquisition cost, churn, among many others. And when I asked him how he knew so much after only being out of school such a short time, I discovered that he did his internship at the same company. And during that internship, he poured himself into the job, but he listened intently to the conversations around him and the meetings that he was invited to sit in on. And he quickly surmised that this business was all numbers and strategy behind the scenes and creative execution to engage and win customers and to get repeat sales from those existing customers on the front end. But he intimated to me some of the things that he wished he would have had more exposure to in school, like some of those KPIs that I just mentioned, as well as the importance of return on marketing investment, customer engagement, conversions, and working with product development, among many others. Teaching today's students is particularly challenging, as all of you know. We're competing with other courses, work, social media, their social lives, reduced attention spans, and myriad other distractions. And whether you're a full-time or adjunct professor, you have a life outside of education. So trying to give your students a great experience in which they are going to learn something can indeed be a challenge. And like you, I've spent considerable time creating materials, lecturing, and covering a lot of information into my classes while wondering how much the students actually retain. So that brings me to the forgetting curve, which I just want to talk about for a moment, but I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, which describes how quickly we forget things. So basically, the more time goes on, the less we remember what we learn. But there are ways to combat the forgetting curve, namely time and repetition. But other methods that can help combat the forgetting curve as well include spacing out learning in bite-sized chunks. Accessibility, like on mobile devices, overall engagement, and keeping the material relevant are all very conducive to learning that actually sticks. So I try to think about the forgetting curve often because in marketing, there truly is a lot to learn. What's more, marketing is changing at such a rapid clip. Technology, data privacy, new trends, new platforms and systems, and new acronyms and names for just about everything. So how do we help our marketing students learn things that are really going to help them in the job market? There are a few truisms that I've embraced over the years that I always impart to my students, and I'd like to share those with you, and hopefully you can find them beneficial, and I'd love to learn what yours are as well. Number one, they have to think like the company, they have to think like the customer. I'll talk about that more in a minute. Marketing is strategy and execution, two sides of the same coin. I always just, hold up a quarter or show one on the screen and say, look, marketing is two things that have a very symbiotic relationship, strategy and execution. 3, the value equation, which is basically a two-way street. You give value to get value. And that's, true of marketing, but certainly true of life. The final 2 have nothing to do with marketing, yet everything to do with marketing. 1, they have to learn to deal with ambiguity in marketing, marketing management, digital marketing, really every aspect of marketing can be very ambiguous. Most new marketers are not going to walk into a job that has a playbook. I'm actually looking at a sign on my desk, hutch, that just says ambiguity, that was made by a student in this class that they gave me because I talked about it so much. Secondly is something that I refer to as JAF. I call it the jackass factor. Nobody wants one of those on their team, and I hope that didn't offend anybody. But I tell the students, look, you can be the best marketer in the world, have the greatest skills, but if you're not a good team player and somebody that can be a good team member, nobody's going to want you on their team. So time for another quick poll. So we want to get some feedback from you in terms of what is your biggest challenge when it comes to teaching marketing management or marketing related courses. So if you could use the poll tool and choose your best answers, that would be great. I'm seeing a couple of answers. Prep time for lesson plans and teaching. Prep time for lesson plans and teaching materials. Online or hybrid classes certainly can be challenging. Classroom distractions, phones, lack of student engagement, staying current. Yeah, these are all certainly things that all of us experience. Prep time for lesson plans and teaching materials and lack of student engagement, staying current are the leaders. I appreciate your responses. Yes, and we experience that on a daily basis, obviously, as instructors. And I think you'll see, if you look at any of the Stu Kent courses, what they're trying to do is address all of those from some pretty great products. But we'll talk about that a little later. So thank you for your responses. I appreciate that. So what I'd like to talk about now is there's 5 key takeaways that I hope you get from this webinar. And those were the 5 that, I mentioned in terms of what you will learn. So let's talk about the first key takeaway. And that is students instinctively think like customers, yet they often look past thinking like a customer. So let me explain that a little bit. So marketing students are already customers. They've been making purchases their whole lives. But paradoxically, this also desensitizes them to the fact that customers of companies come in all different shapes and sizes. They're not all like they are. And at the end of the day, it always comes down to the target audience or the persona. So if you don't know the prospective customer as well as possible, it's likely they won't develop products or services that meet their needs. You might not create a customer experience that delights them or develop messaging that will resonate with them so that they do become a customer. And the best way to know your prospective customer is to dig in and do the research. So Monday night, I'm teaching a digital marketing course. This is an 8-week course on the ground here in St. Louis. So this is a really recent story. So digital marketing class, they're working on personas for a case project. And this particular group of students came up with really detailed personas that I was sort of blown away because they were so detailed. And upon questioning them, it was kind of revealed that students were largely going on instinct and traits and characteristics of what they thought fit a particular persona. And that's a good starting place. But in this particular project, these personas would be for lead generation and where the leads are actually going to real salespeople. And I told them, look, on the job, they will need to research to back up these details because it's real at that point. Research is still a really significant part of marketing. You have to have a rationale of why you are making a specific recommendation, and that's often research-based. I told them there's nothing worse than telling your boss, I just thought it would be a good idea. But the other point that brought this up for me, which was, students would really benefit by thinking like customers more in terms of, if they understand sales from the standpoint that there's e-commerce, but there are many companies out there with actual sales forces. Only 15% of retail sales in the US is e-commerce, and it's about 17% for B2B e-commerce. So that underscores that a lot of personal selling still happens and that marketing is joined at the hip with sales. However, a lot of our students may not have had a lot of opportunities to deal with professional salespeople yet, like in the auto industry, insurance, B2B sales, marketing, and creative services, just to name a few. Sometimes my students squirm when I tell them that marketing ultimately is about selling something, but it is. So key takeaway number 2, what companies want emerging marketing managers to know. If you look at the current job descriptions like the one we saw earlier, you will quickly surmise that how much is expected of incoming marketing managers. Many of these descriptions would lead you to the conclusion that many companies either want the moon or they don't know what they need, or they're hoping to capture that true unicorn who can flawlessly handle strategy, execution, and be ready to step in for the CEO when she's on vacation, but all with very little experience. And as someone who values and spends time on strategy, I believe companies certainly appreciate the ability to think strategically, but new marketing managers are typically not going to be involved with strategy. Strategy has already been set by their boss or their boss's boss or even their boss's boss's boss. They will largely be involved with execution and project management, which I will talk about in a minute. How many marketing plans have you had your students write? Probably quite a few. I do it all the time too. But again, new marketing managers aren't likely to be writing too many marketing plans, at least initially. But that doesn't mean all the plans that we have them write aren't worthwhile, because they certainly are. Flex the muscles of strategy and execution often, but just realize that the execution piece, the one that is often reserved for creatives, is where they will spend a lot of time managing projects related to execution. It's likely that a significant amount of time is going to be generating leads, brand awareness, demand generation, and working with sales. So the sales and marketing integration part is really essential, as mentioned earlier, in understanding how marketing and sales work together to generate leads and acquire new customers is critical. And the reporting between the two functions is really important as well. So that also leads me to another thing that companies are looking for in new marketing professionals. They want intellectually curious employees. They want the things that really we can't teach: motivation, passion, and people who are going to be lifelong learners. Another story quickly, just from a conversation I had earlier this week. A VP at our digital marketing agency here in town said to me, "If you don't keep learning, you're dead in this industry." And it really struck me, and I actually had to stop the conversation and write it down. And I can't remember the context with which she said that, but you will only teach your students a fraction of what they need to know. So it's critical that they embrace the notion of lifelong learning and self-education. And that's something that we can instill in them. So another poll: what are the top 3 things marketing students need to know from your perspective as they enter the job market? Paul, are we using the chat for this or a poll? I tell you what, if you would all use your chat function and just say, what are the top 3 things that you think marketing students need to know as they enter the job market? Okay, I'm not seeing any responses. So we may have to come back to this question. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Oh, SEO. Okay, thank you, Janet. Appreciate that answer. Data analysis, Eric Riney, Dr. Eric Riney from Webster. Thank you. Communication skills, appreciation for analytics. Absolutely. The industry, the target audience, and media to reach them. Definitely. understanding how to communicate with their target audience. Thank you, Kevin. Kelly, relationship building, time management, analytics, project management, social media. Absolutely. Yeah, these are all fantastic answers. So I appreciate you contributing. And it's amazing to me how many of you are, certainly saying SEO, social media, data analytics. So great. Thank you for the responses. I appreciate it. So key takeaway number 3, why students need to wear both hats as a marketer. The real point about wearing the hat of the company and the customer is that students need to understand the importance of the external customer and the internal customer, the stakeholders in the business. So from coworkers to bosses to owners or shareholders, there is a lot that new marketing managers have to do that they may not really understand or even agree with, for that matter. And we often say it's about the customer, and it is, but there is more than one, external and internal. So wearing both hats as a marketer means a lot of different things, and it encompasses a lot of different skill sets. When you're thinking about the company, you're thinking about results, efficiency, leads generated, new customers, site visits, profitability, and so much more. But you have to think about reporting too. When you're thinking about the customer, you're thinking about creating value, increasing calls to action effectiveness, nurturing from awareness to decision, sales, messaging, compelling content, and so much more. So the marketer is by definition forced to wear both hats, but the kicker is they may not have control over what's being done. A lot of our students are probably going to walk into a situation within the confines of a structure that might already be set in their ways, or not fully understand what marketing even is, or simply looking at marketing as a cost center that creates pretty pictures. Either way, they have to see things from 2 largely different perspectives. But where this really comes into play is seeing how the disparate pieces work together and ultimately provide some type of measurement or return. The more owners and executive management wonder what marketing dollars are doing for the business, the more tap dancing we have to do. When marketers can show definitive results, it's certainly amazing, but if they can show correlation and attribution in how one thing is affecting another, ambiguous things like brand awareness and customer engagement have new meaning, and investors know their money is truly doing something, even if it's not clear-cut or a positive quantitative ROI. Let me just tell you a quick story. This is Emma. Emma is a senior marketing manager that I work with. And her career began like so many others, where she cut her teeth as a marketing coordinator for a few years, then as a marketing project manager, and now a senior marketing manager. And I asked her, what she thinks new marketers should know coming into the job market, such as a marketing coordinator, with the understanding that she has the benefit and bias of hindsight. Her list was pretty extensive, and as you might imagine, largely focused on execution. But it certainly underscores some of the things that we might not be teaching enough as well. Relationship with sales, managing vendor partners, importance of metrics and KPIs, among many others. But probably her biggest ahas were the stuff that you can only learn on the job. Relationships, management styles and protocols, things that are important to bosses and owners, thinking on your feet, knowing when to interject or stay back, and so on. So we may not be able to teach them everything, but we can give them a heads up so they have some idea of what to expect when they get there. So key takeaway number 4, how project management has become such a desirable skill set for marketers. This, in my opinion, might be the most undervalued skill in marketing. If one considers all the moving parts of everyday marketing, even just a campaign, good project management skills are essential. At the company where I work, we have marketing personnel, several external vendors, including a branding agency who handles creative and strategy, 2 digital agencies, and a traditional media buying agency. And what's more, we have freelancers, and we have meetings continuously with internal stakeholders as well as investor partners. So at any given time, we have ongoing marketing as opposed to just a specific campaign that entail the following: vendor partner management, client management, as I mentioned, internal and external, website management, content development, SEO, paid search, social media, paid social, display advertising, TV, radio, and print, HubSpot marketing automation, CRM, and reporting. So that's an ongoing effort. But on top of that, we have everyday management that includes edits and approvals on a variety of things, including some of the strategic decisions that have been made. Are they working? Do we need to switch gears at all? But execution, which includes copywriting, art direction, production, placement, duration, and much more. So there's an untold number of moving parts that have to be managed every day, not to mention the agency and internal stakeholder relationships. So in a lot of our marketing classes, we're not teaching this, but we should be. Project management is essential to solid execution, which is essential, as you all know, to support the strategy, which supports the objectives and the goals. So project management is a huge part of the job, and it's generally where a lot of marketing people get their feet wet long before they get to strategy. But for emerging marketing professionals, marketing within a company or for a client, it can seem chaotic, if not downright messy. And as mentioned earlier, I teach students that they have to learn to deal with ambiguity because marketing is not really a place where everything is cleanly laid out. Oftentimes they're going to get their hands dirty because in many organizations, the marketing system doesn't exist or it's a serious work in progress. And oftentimes project management skills are going to start at the lower level, such as a marketing coordinator or a similar position. So number 5, the key takeaway for number 5 is why instructors need to understand the full impact of digital on marketing management students. As you all know, digital marketing is often treated as something separate in terms of marketing management, courses that are offered and things like that. And after all, it can certainly be its own course or a standalone program or certificate. Digital marketing in and of itself is a paradox. And I'm noticing this more and more every day. Because it is so ubiquitous and something that we all experience every day, all day, business people, particularly executive management, tend to minimize or even marginalize its importance and the effort that it takes to make it work. And because everything is measurable, there is a supreme focus, maybe obsession is a better word, with the actual leads it produces without realizing all of the things that lead to that lead. Digital marketing means marketing and technology, and that means lots of content, myriad systems and platforms, measurement, data, analytics, e-commerce. It's a cesspool of creative technology and strategy. And again, a digital marketing campaign or ongoing effort has so many moving parts. So project management is really essential as it pertains to digital. But there is a lot of specialization within digital marketing. So even if a marketing manager is not doing the execution, they still have to understand a lot to effectively manage the effort. And companies are expecting our graduates to be able to wear a lot of hats. So again, back to the job descriptions, you see lead generation, SEO, and social media, analytics everywhere. But you're also going to see that often the people who write these descriptions expect that new marketing manager to also be a crack designer, copywriter, SEO expert, and more. Now, we can't make them experts in each area, but we can prepare them to have a working knowledge of digital because it's everywhere, but it's also not a standalone. There is a very symbiotic relationship between digital and traditional. Integrated marketing communications is crucial. But the fact that we still discern between digital and traditional underscores how different it is. It requires a thorough understanding of so many things, including the execution, copywriting, graphic design, target markets, a variety of content, platforms and channels, project management, measurement and reporting, usually from multiple sources, technology like marketing automation and CRMs, and last but not least, certainly strategy. Communications and especially writing are really critical skills that we need to encourage and foster in all of our students. Cannot emphasize this enough, and I'm sure all of you are realizing this as well. But when they get out there, they are going to have to communicate extensively, both internally and externally. And being able to communicate orally and through the written word are not only important, but beneficial in terms of getting the job done, and also progressing in one's career. So this is just a quick story. This is my son, Ben. He is going through the interviewing process now, trying to find his first real job after graduating in December. He has some promising prospects, and I asked him, some questions for this presentation. I asked him specifically what he wishes he knew before graduating and starting the job search. And he did mention a number of things, but he also said that there weren't too many surprises because he has his old man whispering in his ear all the time. But he did think about it for a minute, and he came back with some really salient points. Number one, that as much as it is about what you need to show that you know some skills, it's also about the type of person you are, which I think goes back to the soft skills. The business world is finally, thank goodness, valuing soft skills as opposed to being so hard skills focused. There are, number two, that there are protocols and best practices like thank you notes, consistent follow-up, showing that you want the job, showing up when you're supposed to show up, and finding the balance between persistence and annoyance. And lastly, how seemingly busy people are, and that the world isn't going to stop to invite him in for an interview. That's probably the most salient of all. And hopefully, the more that they know that walking out of graduating and entering the job market, the better that will be for them. So we're nearing the end here. And as I mentioned earlier, in just a few minutes, Paul will tell you about the special gifts that Stu Kent has for you. But I wanted to kind of give you guys just a quick heads up of how I came to work with Stu Kent and really why I admire them so much. Because as I started working with them, I learned that their mission is to help educators, help students, help the world. A noble mission for sure. And they're doing just that by really trying to produce courseware and simulations that help us as educators, that certainly help students. And if you're on LinkedIn, you've likely seen countless students and educators talk about Stu Kent. I actually was on my phone Wednesday night, and I noticed this popped up on LinkedIn, and this student put out there on LinkedIn how proud she was of a certificate that she earned for a Stu Kent PR course. And we're seeing this more and more, and it's really resonating with students in a big way. So I hope that you are seeing those as well. But a few things that I really like about Stu Kent and their approach is, I actually fell into using Stu Kent's material a couple of years ago. I was teaching a digital marketing course for an instructor who couldn't do it. And that instructor was going to use Digital Marketing Essentials courseware from Stu Kent, as well as the Mimic Pro software simulation, which is pay-per-click focused. And what I learned from that experience was students get to apply what they're learning, think critically about it, and have an active learning experience. And I'm a huge fan of that. Two, students get to engage with content and technology, which is certainly native to them. They're digital natives, so that only makes sense. And three, instructors can offer an enhanced learning experience while having a lot of the heavy lifting done for them. That particular course for me, when I walked in and was told that, this is what the course was going to be using, I'm like, oh, good Lord, I don't have time to, quickly take this course over and learn this stuff. But it is actually what, that was my introduction to Stu Kent. So having said all of that, I contacted Stu Kent after that experience, and I connected with Stu, the president, on LinkedIn, and I said, hey, do you want some feedback on what some of my students experienced using, the courseware? And he was all ears, wanted to hear all about it, which certainly is, a great thing. You want people to be in that mode where they're listening to the customers. And so I talked to them about writing a marketing management courseware. And the approach was different in that, I'm looking over at my bookshelf right now, and I have a stack of marketing management books that I've used over the years that I used as sort of a benchmark. One of them is an 8-pound book with like 700 pages before you get to the appendix. And it's an amazing book that's just so deep, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted to make it easily consumable for today's students. And it's written in a way that is casually written. It's scannable. It's presented in digestible chunks. And where the two views of marketing kind of come in for this particular book was I looked at one chapter from the customer perspective, one chapter from the company perspective. So there's 5 modules with just 2 chapters each. And we carried that theme throughout the courseware. But the other part about it is we tried to use really timely and relevant examples that are going to resonate with today's marketing students. So it's deep enough and broad enough that you can, use it in a more introductory course, or if you're, we have several graduate classes that are using it. So I think it's flexible in a lot of different ways. So, just to kind of summarize, we really just wanted to make it different, and we think that it is. So with that, I'm going to hush up, and I would like to thank all of you for taking your time and consideration to spend this time with me, and we're going to open it up for some Q&A. So Paul, how are we handling this? I guess use your chat function to submit questions, and I will do my best to answer them. There's Paul.
Yeah, let's do that. There were a couple of questions that I saw on there already. Mary had asked if there's a class prior to the marketing management course, and I would just respond with that we do have a marketing principles courseware and simulation also. So that's definitely one that can be used for more the general intro to marketing course that's used. It looks like Eric says, you mentioned some key critical areas that remain gaps in many of our programs. How well does the student courseware, specifically the simulation, apply some of these soft skills and marketing management concepts?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, in particularly the marketing management, mimic marketing management, it's called, is a software simulation that I was involved with in terms of being the what's the word I'm looking for, Paul?
The subject matter expert.
Subject matter expert for whatever reason that was escaping me. And the beauty about the simulation is that it takes them through scenarios where they have to apply and critically think about the stuff that they're learning. So, there's scenarios where they have to make a choice. If you do this, this is what's going to happen. And it's super interactive. And again, I think it goes back to the active learning. We all sort of grew up, at least a lot of us, in terms of passive learning, right? You may be reading, but you're also listening to a lecture. And I think this really takes it a step further. And I would encourage all of you to check it out, even if it has nothing to do with mine. There's so many others that StuKent offers, and it's just a fantastic experience. So Eric, I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, please say something in the chat, and I'll try to address it.
And Mary also asked if they don't have a principles class, would students be successful in this class? I believe they would, Terry.
I believe they would too.
Both of those. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, Mary, that's a great question. And so with this book, this courseware, I still refer to it as a book, but with this courseware and the simulation, it was really written for, the sophomore to senior level. But what I think you'll find is, so there's 5 modules: brand, customers, product, communications, and technology. And there's 2 chapters for each of those modules. And I personally would be very comfortable using this for an intro level class if they didn't have a principles course. So I hope that answers your question.
I'm going to throw a link on the screen here for everyone. This is a link to the courseware, the Marketing Management Today courseware. And what we want to do is, if you have any questions on this, go ahead and click this link to request access, and we can grant you free instructor access to this courseware. And you can actually, with that access, you can get in and you can see everything that Terry has created here. You can see all the chapters, you can read them. You can see the video that he's put in, how interactive it is. You can see the lesson plans. You can see the assignments, the quizzes, everything. So if you would like more information, please click on this link, request access, and you can check it out for yourself. If you're interested in more about the simulation, you can also request a demo. And we have people here at Student who can walk you through so that you can see what exactly the simulation does, what the scenario is the students will be going through, what they'll learn, and how it pairs with the courseware. And then that is one of the benefits of Terry working on the courseware and the simulation, is that the two pair together perfectly.
Yeah.
The teachers don't get questions when students are working on the simulation about not knowing things because they were already discussed in the courseware.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Paul, can I answer this question from
Yes.
Brian? Brian asked if if they don't have a marketing management course being taught, can this be used as an intro to marketing? And again, I think it can, Brian, and I'll just submit this to Brian as well as anybody else that's watching this. My email is on the screen, terry@strategicglue.com. I'm happy to get on a call with anybody. I've talked to many instructors who are using this, some from intro level all the way up to grad level. And in one case, included in this are syllabi for 16-week and 8-week courses. But in many cases, I've helped different instructors align our syllabus with whatever they're using. So I can answer any questions that you have, but yeah, I think you could definitely use this as an intro to marketing course, Brian, and I'm happy to talk with you about it if you'd like. And my phone number's on there as well.
Great.
And
Great.
Paul, can I just say thank you to everybody for the kind words. So many people have said, "Oh, this is a great presentation," and blah blah blah. And so I appreciate it very much. I love to do these, but I just sort of geek out on talking about this stuff. It's just what all of us do as educators, cannot be overstated. And I just have such respect for everybody, and anything that I can do to help you and I can learn from you, it's awesome. So thank you. And Stu Kent, thank you for making this, possible.
Well, thank you, Terry. It was a fantastic presentation. As a marketing manager, I listen to what you're presenting, and it's so true when you say what the marketing manager needs to know, and then also what the marketing manager is expecting for new hires. And so it's so relevant and it's so current, and I really appreciate that. So thank you. I just want to thank everyone for attending today. We will send out an email that includes this presentation so that you're able to watch it. And for those who registered and were not able to attend, we will send it to them also. We look forward to having more webinars like this. So if you have specific topics that you're interested in hearing about, especially as they pertain to marketing management or marketing in general, please reach out to us. Just respond to any of our emails or enter it in the chat here. We'd love to hear what you're interested in learning more about, and we'd love to help you out that way. Also, I would just say if any of you are attending AMA this upcoming week, Stukent, we will be there, and we will have several innovation sessions where we have speakers, and we will be there. I will be there with others at a booth, and we would love to chat with you and meet you in person. So if you're there, please stop by and visit with us. Terry, thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Paul. I appreciate it.
Okay, and we will sign off. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.